Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina, I'm the host here, and my guest today comes from Norway, Anja being Vangsnes. Did I do it right?
Almost, Vangsnes. Hello,
Okay.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I found your account on Instagram. You actually asked me how I managed to find your account,
Yeah.
and I told you that like I do a lot of scrolling on Instagram and just see what's gonna catch my eye, and your account definitely did that. Tell me a little bit, how did you get into the tapestry weaving?
Oh, it's kind of, I've always been doing some sort of artistic work by myself, not for showing any crowds or anything. And my grandmother, she went to the arts and crafts school in the 50s and learned weaving there. So I had this from my childhood. I had always seen those looms at her house and like had this like romantic view on it. And in my mid-20s, I think my mom, she proposed the idea that maybe we should learn it together at some point and like to bring that heritage on in some way and to keep the knowledge in the family. And we didn't really do anything about it just then, but at some point I got really, really depressed and I had a lot of anxiety. And I figured out that I had to do something with my hands and I had to do more tactile work than I did. And I hadn't been doing art for some time and I kind of felt like I was losing myself and kind of my core. So I asked my grandmother if I could have the looms and she said no because I didn't have a big enough apartment. Which like it really ignited the fire in me. So then I was like, okay, if I can't have those big looms, I will make myself a small one. So I went out and bought a frame, like a picture frame, and some nails, and just made my own loom and started weaving. And then I sent her a lot of pictures with this like tiny, really ugly weaving. And she found the tapestry course. So she put me on into that course, and it was like ladies in their 60s doing this very kind of rigid tapestry weaving, which we have a really big heritage of in Norway, and especially from like mid-century, last century, and everything that is the rules are really strict, and you only use one color, and then you do it only these patterns that are already made. And I found that a bit boring. So then I just decided I have to make my own images and like do it in some kind of creative way. And after some time, I realized that it would be nice to kind of weave myself and to see myself from the outside and sit and work with that because it takes
Find
such a
it like
long time.
I find it very interesting because like when I'm
Yeah.
looking at your images, it's something like very open and very raw. It's like you're showing your soul basically to the
Yeah.
world. Like, was that a difficult decision for you?
Mm, Not really, because my intention was to use this as a kind of a tool for myself, um, more than to. I decided that I'm always thinking too much about what everyone else probably thinking, and what I show out to them. So I decided when I started tapestry weaving, I made a lot of rules for myself that I have to, if I've made something, I have to stick with it. And when it's done, and all this stuff. So I think I just went really into myself and went for what do I need to make, instead of what will other people think about what I'm making.
Right.
And also, it took a few years before I started posting them on Instagram. So I just made them
What
for
was that reaction? How did like your family react when you started doing it? How your friends reacted, your
yeah,
followers? Like what was that initial reaction?
yeah. When I started to show more, um, it was kind of weird for me because I didn't really think that anyone would want to see them or have any interest in it because it was such a personal project for me, to like find out what I want to do and to sit and work on that and I kind of almost meditate on on what I want to do and who I want to be and what I'm showing of myself or to myself and everything like that. So it was kind of a bonus. And then I was also decided that I don't really need to be, because I've always thought that like hashtags and stuff were kind of lame and like you shouldn't really try to get too famous, or like I think I have kind of a Norwegian mindset of that, not sticking too much out. But when I started to show them, I got a lot of positive reactions, like a lot, and people really liked it. So I realized that I should just show more. And
well, you're talking about how you have these rules about like when you're done, you're done. And yet I saw that reel when you were like change your mind and started doing things. And I was like, oh my God, she's gonna cut it all, you know.
Yeah, because I decided at some point that I made these rules to be more certain in what I want to make. And after a while, I started to feel like I was doing what I wanted to do instead of being afraid of the outcome and not doing what I didn't want to do. So when I came to that, I realized that I could do changes if I want. But I'm trying to stick with it. But if I see that something really doesn't work, I can go in and like try. And I don't know, I kind of like the thrill. So it was really fun to cut in it and see like if I could make it or if everything would just be broken.
Right. Well, tell me about the process. Like for those of us who are not very intimately familiar with tapestry weaving, tell me like what's involved, like what's the process of making something?
Yes, I usually start with a picture first. That I take a picture of something I like, or I go through my snapshots and see if I can like find something that I resonate with. And sometimes I stage as well. And then I start to draw it. So I'm usually tracing it first on the computer, and then I print it out in the size I want the finished tapestry to be, and then I put it together and I paint it afterwards. So I found a few of those paintings that I'm using for the tapestry. So if you want me to show them now.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Like maybe with this one, I can show you the finished tapestry afterwards as well. So because here I have like standard A4 pages that I'm printing out and then I paint on them. So this is the bottom.
Right.
And then I have the top here. And then I put it together and then I warp the loom. So I have this tapestry loom like this.
So that's not the one that you made yourself with nails and picture frame.
No, this is not the same. This is not the same. This is far bigger. Right. But I warp it around. So I go, and then I go on the back and around and around.
Right.
And I put the cartoon I make inside. And then I start weaving on it, basically.
Right. So like you have to come up with all the colors beforehand. It's basically like a complete painting and then you just replicate it as you go, right?
In some kind of way. I paint it, so I have like a general idea on which colors I want to use. And then I kind of do it as I go and to try to make everything work together. And I'm mixing a lot of colors. So I'm usually using like 3 different yarns and colors in every, what's it called? Every weft, which is the inlay, and which is what is shown. So if you like see on this one, like all the colors here are like 3 in 1.
You know what was amazing for me when I was looking at your account? There is like some little elements that you show of that particular weaving behind you, and there is just like a snap of the blue, and it's so complex, it's so beautiful, like on its own, right? That it's hard for me to imagine how you can like keep all of those colors in mind to like consciously create them, you know, because it's like I'm looking at each individual piece and I'm like, that would be beautiful framed just like that. You know? But for you, it's just one element and like one spot of the tapestry.
I think that's probably the reason that I'm sticking to the tapestry, because it takes such a long time to make for the first. If you see like the gas mask up in the corner there, it took me probably a week and a half maybe of like intensive weaving. So I get really into every single part I'm weaving, and then I can go back and watch it and see it, like how does it work together now, and which color do I need to add at some point to make the composition better and to make it kind of harmonic in some kind of way. So I'm trying to use a lot of like knowledge I have from, I don't know, I haven't gone, I've actually studied history, so I'm a master in history and not in art, but in high school I took in the art way there, the art school in high school, and I'm using a lot of the knowledge I have from like color theory, composition, and stuff like that to try and like make something work.
Well, when you look at some of your like early works, what do you see? Like, do you see places to improve? Do you see like, oh my God, like I can't believe I was capable of doing it? Like, how do you see your own work looking back?
Yeah, I think I see it like as a process of learning, absolutely. Because what's also making me want to continue to do it is that I feel like I have so much more to learn. I have so many more like difficult, complex things that I can make and try to figure out how to make them, because I really have to think to put like the right threads at the right point to build it up. So yeah, absolutely. I've kind of changed how they look over time, but I really like the old ones as well, I would say, because I see it as, I can look back at them and see like at that point I was really trying to figure out this, how the image would like suit into the room. And in the beginning I did a lot of stuff that was like where I felt like the motives were kind of floating. And then I went and made a lot of pictures from the bathroom where I had all these tiles. So I was like, okay, I'm making a grid now. Since like tapestry weaving is basically working on a grid in the first place. But then I just decided to make a grid upon the grid and to see what kind of 3D effect I could use on this kind of limited media. So
talking about the bathroom pictures, there was whole series of the bathroom pictures. Like, why did you decide to go that route?
I think it was during the first lockdown. I quit my job 3 days or before lockdown because I had a contract that was running out and I didn't want a new contract there, and I was thinking that I could get a new job. And then I was stuck at home for weeks and weeks. So I just started a few days after that and decided, okay, I'm going to sit down and use this time to weave. And now I'm home and I wanted to, I'm not really sure how the first idea came, but I wanted to do something like with mirrors and trying to make some kind of 3D effect on it, and trying to like play with some different angles and stuff. And then I just started on it and felt like it was much, in some kind of way, much more personal than the ones that I had done before. And they also felt like really intimate. I was like weaving a part of something that you don't really show everyone. It's like being naked in the bathroom. Everyone are naked in the bathroom at some kind of point, but you don't really show it off to the world. So it was kind of a way to go inside, back into myself, and feel like, what do I want to do now?
Right. How do you come up with the ideas in general? Like, do you write them down, like when they come to your head? Is it like immediate inspiration and you run to the loom and start sketching it? Like, how many of those ideas have been marinating in your head for like a while, and how
I
much
think
of it is like immediate kind of
I
thing?
think they are marinating for a while. All of them actually. I am very impulsive in general, but since the tapestries takes such a long time to make, I try to wait a little bit after I get the idea and think more about them before I make them to life, so to
Well, I
say.
mean, like, so like if you look at yourself, right? You like very
Mm,
lively, you like active, you impulsive, yeah.
mm,
And then you're doing something that takes a lot of patience, a lot of discipline, long time, like, how is it balancing like in you? Is that your meditative
yeah,
space?
yeah, I think it is. And I think I have last year I was diagnosed with ADHD. So I've been like undiagnosed ADHD always, and it has worked kind of okay, but it has also left me with periods of my life where I've been really depressed and had a lot of anxiety. Um, I figured out during the whole weaving process that I don't really do the things that I want. That I can't. That is really hard. It's been really hard to figure out for me what I really want to do. Um, So I think by doing it, since it's so tactile and I work with my hands, and I have to focus in some kind of way. So I know what I'm doing, but so my mind can't drift too much away, but it still gives me room to think more easily.
And is that the tapestry, does that ever give you anxiety? Do you ever stress over like things that you can't achieve the likeness, or you don't like things don't work the way you thought they're gonna work?
Yeah, in a way, but I don't really. I figured out like a solution to it, and that is to make more tapestries at once. So,
Well,
so
how many projects do you work on at once? Like is
right now I only have one project. Or I do have a lot of other projects that I'm not weaving yet, that I've only been painting or drawing on the computer. But I'm only weaving one right now. But when I did this one, it took me like 8 months, but I had a break in the middle because I think when I was here or something, I just realized that I'm not sure how I'm going to do the skin now. Because I had on the previous ones, I had like simplified it a lot and just had 2 colors in the skin. And now I wanted to add more other colors as well and kind of go back to the idea of more like impressionistic light and darkness and use colors in that. So then I had to stop and weave some other stuff and see how that worked out. And then go back to it. So it wasn't that scary to start
do
with.
you ever just swatch, or is it like is your love of swatching as big as my love of swatching, which is like I know I have to do it, but I never do it?
Mm, yeah, but it's like that. I think with anxiety and like everything of that, I've had that a lot on so many levels and so many parts of my life. Uh, so I'm trying not to make the tapestries something I have to do. I'm trying to make it something I want to do.
I saw
So
one of your posts where I think there was like pair of gray shorts, and you said, lesson learned, like I'm not gonna overcomplicate it in the future, even though I
yeah,
do like how it turned out. Like, do you often feel that way, that you do something and you go into great details and then you look
mm,
back and think, oh, I should have made it simpler?
yeah, I do. But maybe not so much in the tapestries because I'm like I learned to stop beforehand now. And I think that it's the weaving that makes me able to, because it takes such a long time and I have to sit and I know that the problem will come. Or like the problem area where I have to make a big decision. I know it will come and I can sit for like 20, 30, 40, 50 hours weaving before that. And then when it comes to that, I somehow managed to stop and just look at it or take a break from it. And like right now, I just had a long hiatus because I had an exhibition last month or 1.5 months ago, and then I didn't weave for 3 weeks or something like that afterwards because I was just like so tired. I didn't want to do anything, and then I didn't want to force myself to weave either.
Well, I have a question about it. So you know
Mhm.
how sometimes like you'd read the series of books, so you'll watch like a TV series or something that
Mm.
like really sucks you in, and like you spend a lot of,
Mm.
like you feel like you're part of that book, or you feel like you're part of that TV series, and you know all the
Mm.
characters intimately, and then you finished with that, and there's this withdrawal period where you still sort of mentally there. You can't like
Mm.
go into next TV series or next book, right?
Mm.
You need this period of time to sort of mourn
Mm.
the loss of those characters in your life. Do you feel
Mm.
the same with like when you finish your big projects, that like
I
suddenly you
I
have this
do.
vacuum?
Yeah, I do, but I try to. I feel I kind of avoid afterwards because it gives me like gratification and I like instant joy to weave. So I feel like I'm always accomplishing something and it feels so good, and then I stop weaving and it's finished, and I don't really. And I know I could be really proud of myself for finishing up a project, but then I don't get all these emotions of unsatisfaction of doing it anymore. So I tend to like tuck them away for a bit, so I don't really have to think that much about them. And then I try to like change my mind to look at something different. And after a while, I go back and look at them, and then because I always hate my tapestries when they're finished.
Right.
That's the point. Because that's the point. Like what you said earlier, I do really feel like I could have done something better, and I see the problems at first, and I know that I often didn't do it because I was bored and I thought that this takes too long time. I will just fix it another way, uh, and then I go back to it after a while, and I realize that well, I kind of did the best from what I knew at that point and how I felt at that point. So I should actually be really proud of it. And it's kind of, yeah, I can have it on my wall.
Well, I saw that you're using some of your utensils in the not orthodox way, such as like using fork for weaving.
Yes, yes. That's actually very like the traditional Norwegian tapestry
Oh,
weaving.
really?
Yeah. So because there are like a lot of differences from between the countries, and because everyone has, or weaving is some of the oldest. Yeah, and I was just thinking, like, since I studied history, I'm kind of a history geek, and like the oldest city in Norway, the reason they know it's a city is because they found stones that they know has been on looms. So they know, like, if people are sitting down and actually weaving here, they must use some time at this place. So it's just like not, they don't just come here to shop or trade. They actually set up camp here. So and Norway has a really long history of weaving, uh, and it's like I saw the interview with Michelle Driver where she told about like not being a craft, and also like the big tapestry studios, and we have also had like tapestry studios in Norway, but from before that, it was kind of a tradition because Norwegians we're farmers basically, and we have like a long coastline, and all the men went out on the sea for months during the winter, and the women spun the wool from the sheep, and then they made the tapestries on one side of the weavings that the men went out with, and they had this raya. I think it's called raya in English. Yeah, on the other side, so they stayed warm. And these tapestries were made from like the old Norwegian sheep, so they had like the outer wool as well, which kept them like safe from all the weather. at sea. So it is kind of like this old tradition from all, not just from like the bourgeois or like the really rich on all the castles that were covered with these gobelins and stuff like that. It's more like, in Norway, it's more like a craft that everyone kind of did.
Well, when you told me like about your mom wanting to study it together just to keep the craft and like the art of it alive, right? Sort of to keep tradition going. You not doing traditional tapestries by any means.
No.
Do you ever like think about it, like that you want to do something traditional as well, or like do you feel like you're not keeping the traditions alive by going your own contemporary way? Like what's your feel about it?
Well, I kind of feel like I keep the tradition alive actually here in Norway. I do use a lot of the techniques with binding the different warp threads together with the weft. That are kind of very special for Norway. And I also like doing figurative tapestry weaving hasn't been like the big thing in Norway or in the Norwegian art scene for like the last 30, 40, 50 years. They had a break in the late 60s where they wanted to do where the kind of the craft part separated from the art in the tapestry. And a lot of like weavers that really wanted to be acknowledged as artists, not just craftspeople. They decided to change all the materials, go away from the old wool and start using plastic, ropes, things like that, and like making all these different things. There are a lot of artists that make all these figurative pictures as well, but I feel like I'm trying to talk with that old tradition, but also in some new way. And we also have like one of, I think maybe the biggest tapestry artist of all time, Hanna Ryggen. I'm not sure if you know about her. She was active in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Got famous in the 60s when she was in her 60s. She did a lot of political art, a lot of color. She never used a cartoon on the behinds, on the back, and she made dyed all her yarn and lived in a small cabin and just wove and wove and wove. And it was kind of her way to talk to the world. And it was especially like during World War II, she did a lot of like political imagery. And I think there are so we have some traditions here in Norway as well that has.
Well, I mean, do you feel like you're making a political statement? Do you feel like you stating sort of your beliefs through your tapestry?
Yes, I do, but I try to not make them too one-dimensional, if I can say it like that, because I think everything is politics. Like a society is, like the ideas of how to be in a society is like either philosophy or politics, basically. And I think like by doing this and making to take the view of my body and like claim it, and to like be the person that makes this like objectifying images almost, or you can think, even if I really try to put myself out as the subject, not the object, it's still kind of like claiming a narrative that has been, yeah, it's like historically it's usually been like men painting women, and that we were like the muses, and the female body is a work of art in itself. And like, well, it's not much more work of art than a man's body. So yeah, so I think like, yeah, I'm trying to do something like to show off my ideas and opinions of things. But I'm also like not trying to make them things so explicit that you only see one thing, because I want the viewer to be able to kind of connect what they see up to their own story and their own narrative and their own worldview in some kind of way, and hope that it could be interesting for them, even if they have a totally different life from me.
Well, when you know how like when rich families like in the old ages would hire a painter to do a portrait, the portrait usually would be exaggerate the beauty of the household. How do you approach, like, because there is a lot of nude paintings, there is a lot of like you in it. How do you approach yourself when it comes to art?
I try not to make myself thinner or prettier, because if I look at it afterwards then and I find it beautiful, then I know with myself, then I would think, yeah, of course it's beautiful because I've made myself more beautiful. It's not because I am beautiful. So I think it's like, but of course if I'd painted, I could paint like all my cellulites and stuff like that, but doing weaving, that would take such a long time. So I don't want to do that.
It's like automatic filter right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, it's blurred down a lot. So yeah, with my body, you kind of would see like the outlines instead of everything that goes on the skin. So yeah, I do get, part of it will get prettier then, but also I'm trying not to make like a polished worldview, or like, I want to have all that gritty and sad and scary, and yeah, I find those things more interesting to like dive into and understand why do we feel like that.
I wanted to ask you about another very important person in your life, if we can call her a person. So I'm talking about your cat, Suki. So she often appears on your tapestry, either as a company to you or by herself. Is it difficult to weave a cat?
No, I think or she has a lot of pattern, so that could be, or it's time consuming. So, and I have to stop and think and figure out how to do things. So it's difficult in the way that I really have to focus on it. But no, I think it's kind of easier than to weave a person or to weave a face, that like a human face. That is really hard. But I think I started doing them at something I did in between other tapestries. If I didn't feel, in the beginning, I didn't really know what I was going to make. And then I figured I could just weave my cat. Why not? Like, that would always be nice. So I started doing that in one of my very first tapestries. And then I really liked it and started to do it like in between others. And I think like the narrative of my pictures has kind of evolved, especially after like the pandemic, where I've been more interested in the whole idea of being at home and like how we kind of isolate ourselves, making this like nesting, making a safe space at home. So I tried to like incorporate her as like some kind of familiar thing that a lot of people can also relate to, like having pets at home and like seeing the sides of you that, or they see the sides of you that you don't really show to everyone else, and like making it real like intimate. So it has just like become a natural thing to make.
So do you
and also people like them, so it's always
like, she's so cute
that people like.
Well, how do you pick those poses? Because cats are like so artistic in their expression, right? They're like very dramatic. Like I can always compare them with some like old school paintings where they luxuriating
like
and
like,
right.
Yeah.
Like, how do you pick the exact position? Like, do you take multiple pictures?
Yeah, I take pictures of her all the time. So yeah. So and I have so many pictures that I want to be of her. But then what makes it easier to choose, I think, is the whole grid of the tapestry, because you have the warp threads that goes this way, and then you have the weft that goes this way, and if you make lines that go straight up, it's really hard to make that look pretty, because then you just follow one warp thread, and then you have to like get some of the weft into another warp thread next by, and so it's kind of like I always try to look for the diagonal lines, and to figure out which photos that kind of has a good harmony, I think. Yeah.
So your first exhibit was in 2021, right? Last year.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that?
Oh, it was so fun. Yeah, I loved it. And I found it was like an open call on Facebook. I had met the curator maybe once before, like several years earlier, out on the town and just saying hi. So I replied to it, and he came back to me at once. I'm like, really? Do you want to show it here? I've seen your stuff and it's so good. And he was like, you can do whatever you want, and I just liked it. So it was so nice, and we talked a lot. He was also very interested in like the theory, like not necessarily in the craft, but just like what my ideas behind everything. And we talked a lot of philosophy and like Marxist theory and stuff like that, and like things that oppose to the patriarchy, and like about feminism, and so it was kind of hard to choose what I wanted to present, but I ended only showing 3 tapestries, and then I did, but I felt like that was the right thing to do, because they got the attention they needed, each of them, from that. So yeah, it was such a great experience, and then I went with my partner. We took the flight down and stayed at an Airbnb which had a cat. So then I ended up making a tapestry of that cat as well, which I'm going to show at the annual, what is this called in English? Like the annual exhibition here in Norway, which is like the fall exhibition. So
Well,
yeah.
do you like have any dream, ambition as to where you want to take this? Like, if in the ideal world, right? Like if you could have your wishes granted, what would you do with it?
I think one dream I have is maybe to be bought by, like, to have some of my art bought by a big institution, either like a museum, but also like a public building, to do some like public commission work, to be able to have people see what I've made like every day, and to try to make like a positive impact on having it visual. That would be really nice. And also just like I have a dream that I won't get tired of it, that I want to find a new hobby instead. So, but I've been sticking to this for like 5.5 years now, I think. So I think I'm good.
Well,
yeah.
I hope your tapestry will end in some gorgeous building and people gonna see it every day, and I can't wait to see what else you're gonna create. I'm so glad I found your account. Thank you so much, Anja, for being my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice to connect with you.
Thank you.